I'm sorry, I was a couple of minutes late. I was just on a call and it literally ran over by a minute or two, but not we didn't miss much here, just a minute or two. So welcome back to another DAS, sales workshop. Um, I'm not sure if everybody saw. You guys are obviously on this, so you probably know the schedule, but I did change these recently from weekly on Tuesdays to every other Tuesday, in case anybody's wondering. And I did that for a very specific reason. I've been running these sales workshops now for a year and a half or 2 years straight, and what I've come to find is a lot of the lessons are just very, very redundant. I'm just doing the same thing I was doing 6 months ago. 2 weeks in between gives me more time to meet with more people, hear more issues, come up with new lessons. Just seems to make more sense right now. But if we do get to the time where you guys want, or there's more demand for weekly workshops and something's missing, no problem going back to doing them. But that was my main thinking there. And being very transparent with you guys, there'd be certain weeks where I'm like, all right, well, I keep getting asked about this, but I just thought about this for 3 weeks straight. It's like I want a couple, a week or two in between, so that way we can come up with new lessons, new curriculum, new feedback, all that kind of stuff. And I put together, well, something that I think is pretty good today. And it doesn't really matter what I think; it's much more relevant what you guys think. But anyway, I see, I don't know, 5 or 6 people in here now. What I always like to do on my workshops, guys, and again, I know some of you repeat, maybe there's some new people here, but I like to start off and just be respectful of everybody's time. I know sometimes we attend workshops, and me, being in programs in the past and still in masterminds that I'm in, sometimes I hop on a call just because I want something answered and I got to hop off in 10 minutes. And that being said, if anybody came on this call with a specific question, or they're looking, to go over a specific scenario, do me a favor and just drop a 1 in the chat and I'll be happy to call on you. And as many of you know, I always do a Q&A at the end of this too, that is obviously going to be more relevant to what we cover on today's lesson may generate some questions that you don't have right now. You know what I mean? But again, I always put that offer out there at the beginning of each workshop. So I don't see anything in the chat there as of yet, and I'll keep that open. If anybody has any question, type a 1 in there if you want me to call on you. If you want me to just read your question and something I can answer and you don't want to unmute, just type it in the chat. Also happy to address it. But what I'm going to do now is just get going into what I wanted to cover here today. So first off, and again, redundant for all my repeat visitors here on my workshops, but these are the sales resources I put together that most of you got this initially when you enrolled. We do a one-on-one, what we call a THO, or fastest path to cash call. And then I send you a recap email. This is one of the resources in there. It's also something that I defer back to on a lot of these sales workshops, because pretty much all the sales resources you need to build out your whole sales process is here within this document. And for anybody that's not aware, within here, there's everything you need from scripts, both the triage and the sales call script that I recommend using, or the framework, the pitch decks, call recordings, how I build out my sales process, examples of some of our ads, creative messaging, everything you need from kind of hooks, angles to building out your whole sales process is kind of within this doc. So for anybody that's either new, not familiar, hasn't received this, or may have lost it along the way, I just dropped the link to that right in the chat here in the Zoom room. So you'll see a link to the Google Doc. That's the one on my screen, and that's kind of the sales resources that, again, I defer back to. And we're going to be going back to a big one in here today. Within today's lesson, number 5 on this is going to be pretty relevant to what we're going to cover. And what that is, and again, I put this together over the last week or two, specific to this particular call, and kind of what I wanted to bring here as a lesson today, because listening to, and a few of you guys, again, I don't know if any of the names on this call specifically, I don't think so. Looking here in the chat, none I'm picking up, but a few of you guys, some of you guys know that you send me your call recordings and I give you an invite to, and I kind of dissect them and give you feedback, as if, a sales coach or a sales professional auditing somebody's call. It's one of the things I do for a lot of our clients. So if you guys either never heard that I do that, or have never sent me a call and you record your stuff and you want some feedback and you want to get better, let me know. Happy to do that. And that was just a little context, because where I was kind of going with that was one of the big things I hear that people struggle with, and even questions I get asked in some of these workshops, sometimes in some of the school comments in the community where I answer questions, or people will DM me specific about a sales question, because I have a sales background. I run the sales workshops, but a lot of it has to do with the finances and digging around financials. And what I came across something the other day that was kind of from the archives. It was really cool. It's a clip, and me and one of the co-owners here, my business partner, Jesse, who for any of you that have known us for a while or really dug into our story, I was business partners with Jesse, knew him before either of us met Adam. who's obviously the, I would say, the brains and the majority owner, as well as the third business partner, right? So myself, Adam, and Jesse are all co-owners in this company. I met Jesse before Adam. Jesse and my background was building out sales teams. I was a really good front end guy, especially when I get started doing the triage call, being kind of the first face somebody sees. And then I would send them over to Jesse and he would close. We went through one stretch where we went 14 out of 14. I sent him 14 deals. He closed 14 deals. I don't think we've ever repeated that with any duo in our sales team since we stepped away. And that's when we were first selling Audience Lab. We went 14 for 14. And what I found was back then, he and I put together a role play session where I was like, all right, Jesse, you play the closer because you're better with the kind of hard close and the digging the finances. And I'll play the prospect and I'll do it from a very, I don't know you. And I'll even give you some issues. I'm not just going to say I'm a slam dunk, take my money, right? I'm going to give you some pushback. I'm going to make you dive in and overcome objections. And we did the whole dive into finances. Really, Jesse is probably the best person I know that can do this very seamlessly without being invasive. And I think we can all do that. But the way he does it that way and as highly effective as he does is pretty masterful. So at the bottom of this is what I'm going to cover today. I'm going to go over all this, what's on my screen. But at the bottom, I kind of threw in that bonus clip. It's a 13-minute recording of Jesse and I from some years ago, probably 2021, because it was right around when we were launching Audience Lab. So this is probably going on 5 years old now. A really good breakdown of us doing this if anyone wants to like see it in action. But more specifically, I have the transcripts and the framework all broken down on this document. And that's what we're going to cover here today, how to dig into the finances. Now, I want to set a little bit of a preface by, I mean, digging into the finances to the point where your prospect is literally either telling you the balances in their account and what they have for available credit. They are screen sharing and showing you. I mean, I'm talking about diving into checking, savings, credit. In some cases, we even go as far as 401k, investments, things along those lines. So, and it's really cool how you can do this, but do it from the positioning of what's in their best interest, right? It's not like where they're trying to say, hey, man, bring up your bank account and show it to me, right? That's not going to fly very well if we do it in that frame, really. So I want to show you a very non-invasive way. And again, as I was saying to preface, this is when it's applicable to really dive into finances, right? And what I mean by that is if we're not getting many objections, if we know budget isn't an issue, if they come in saying I can afford this from the jump, these are all scenarios where I'm probably not going to have to dig deep into finances, all right? So again, I just want to preface, you got to feel out every conversation and what you have in your sales bag or arsenal between the scripts and the resources and the call recordings I give you is a full bag of tools, but you only pull out the one you need for that call in that context, right? If I have 10 things in my bag of tools and I only get thrown the opening to use 2 of those tools, the other 8 things stay in my bag. My point is everything is not applicable to every situation in every sales call. And hopefully that's pretty self-evident, but I just kind of wanted to specify. So in this case, for this particular scenario, and we'll dive through some other scenarios and some other main financial objections and some things that we're going to go through. Now, one thing I want to start with for people following along, I'm going to bring up one of the documents that we're going to be covering today, because a lot of what I'm going to cover within here, you're going to see the full transcript. So you guys should already have access to this, and it is within the seller resources doc that I give you. But I kind of, let me just open it and make sure. I was going to say, I kind of highly doubt everybody has it in front of you right now. And I want you to look into this, and I'll cover where once I send you the link. Let me just send the link in the chat so people can follow along with this transcript. This is also very relevant and crucial in today's lesson. So let me just go throw this in the chat. So the first Google Doc was in the chat at 3:05 Eastern timestamp. That is not what's on my screen now. That's the full thing of seller resources. The one that was posted at 3:11 Eastern timestamped in the chat. That's the framework that I said we're going to be covering here more today, everybody. Now, what we're going to be going through today, you're going to want to scroll way down till we get into the finances. So first, these are all objections. And what you're seeing on my screen as I'm scrolling, just so you guys know, I'm going to go back to this and what you have access to. But these are literal call transcripts broken down of closed deals, what me or the closer said, what the prospect said, and that's what all highlighted. And you're going to see, again, I don't know if we're going to have time, and this is kind of my filler if I do have time. We'll go through some of these objections and some of these transcripts as well. But today we're focusing more on the finances. So first off, we can get into the finances and the main overcoming objections. And I want to really highlight, this is a little different than the skill set and the tool that I mentioned from our toolkit or from our bag here, guys, in terms of what we're going to use today. So the overcoming price objection is not necessarily always the same thing or always going to lead to diving into finances. Again, I really specified if we overcome an objection, they just say, all right, yeah, that makes sense, right? I'm ready to move forward. I don't have to necessarily dive into finances. So again, we're going to go back over some of these. But first off, you should know some of the main objections and some of the main way to navigate it or the most effective. I'm not going to say there's not lots of different ways to skin a cat, right? Or to run a sales call, right? Whatever the verbiage is. We can be offering payment plans, which a lot of you guys I know within your Dash plans. I see a lot of you guys go over your offer with me. Some of you guys send me your landing pages, and you have different plans, different programs. You can get my silver tier, my gold tier, or my platinum tier, or whatever you guys call them, right? And if we're doing kind of lump sum type of higher ticket services and packages, a lot of you guys have showed me on your payment things, you offer 2 or 3 pays. The more options we can offer people, the better. Can I survive without them? And do I need them to close deals? No, but I will say the more you become an established company and the more different ways you can approach offering payment plans, the more market share you open yourself to. It's just really that simple. What we really want to focus on today is the financial breakdowns when we need to go into this. So anybody kind of following along, scroll down on that document. What page am I on? Page 9 is where you'll get into the financial breakdowns. And you're going to want to, and I'm going to go back to this probably a couple times, but you're going to want to follow along a little there with what I typed up for today's lesson. Again, so now kind of let me pick up where I want to start this conversation. And let's start from the cost aspect. Let's say we've already went through the discovery phase, right? The gathering intel, problem phase, solution phase. We went through our full presentation, which guys, again, I always specify presentation and price are 2 different things. Very rarely do I sell items where I drop price during the presentation. Maybe for a $99 dollar challenge, $100 challenge, maybe for a low ticket software where it's a monthly $80 membership or less or something like that. But again, generally, I'm not offering that type of stuff very, very often. So when we understand, and again, that's what I mean. Again, when I have a low ticket or kind of a very affordable recurring type of product, I might show the price with the landing page or the offer page, but very, very rare for me. And definitely not if I'm offering any packages that are, let's just say, for argument's sake, $1,000 and north. If that's my price point, I'm never trying to package price while I actually present my offer. Those are 2 different things, always have been. And I've seen, it's rare. Most sales trainers do separate the 2 100%, but I've definitely seen a few that lump it in all into one. And those are more people that are selling automated products, low ticket courses, physical products, and they're doing that through landing page funnels, not necessarily a full sales call process. So again, I just like to point out the differences I see in the market from niche to niche and price point to price point. That certainly varies my sales process and how I build my team, my script. It all changes depending on price point of product, right? So let's start from the cost aspect again, where the prospect either says to me organically, all right, Ray, this sounds great. So what's the cost? Or maybe you get to the point of your sales call or structure where you break into the cost, right? Whichever one, I've found that a lot of times the prospect will ask for cost before I'm generally ready to go into it, okay? And depending on how early on in the conversation, I never dive into price or cost before I'm ready to. I don't do it at their whims. And we can talk about that a little more. I don't want to defer too much from today's lesson, but it's very simple. If somebody asks me the cost before I've ever gotten to the presentation and really laying out the value and showing the outcomes, I mean, I usually just say to somebody, hey, Bob, does it matter if I say $10 to $10,000 right now? You don't even know if my product or service can help you. Isn't that what's really relevant? Should we focus on that or the cost? Right? And then I sit back and shut up. Guess what? 9 out of 10 times they're like, you're right, Ray. Let's focus on if this is the right fit. Cool, let's do that. Boom. And then just right back into my thing. There's a million ways to go about it. My point is, you shouldn't dive into it just at their request. Price gets revealed at a certain point within a sales process or structure for a reason. And it's more effective when it's followed for a reason, which is why people build out SOPs, scripts, frameworks, right? So again, let's say that happens naturally. Now, the next step when let's just say again, they said, hey, Ray, price, don't go into price right away. If we haven't already done this, and I'm just assuming for this point in the conversation, we haven't, the whole temp check. It's time for the temp check before we ever go into price, right? So what do I mean by that? Most of you guys understand this. It's in the script. You're going to have to, I believe, scroll up from page 9, which I told you to follow along for finances. That's probably below step 5 of this in the framework, where I mean page 9 to follow along from. but you will see temp check in the whole script there. I mean, the whole transcript there within the framework that I told you guys to follow along. But it's very simple, something like this. Hey, Bob, so based on everything we discussed, I just laid out what our data and our software does. I laid out the results you should see in your business. With all that being said, just tell me on a scale of say 1 to 10. 1, Ray, you're ugly, let's hang up now. 10, I need this software and this data in my business yesterday to get the results I'm looking for. Where do you stand on that scale, Bob? And he's going to come back with a temp, right? I'm an 8 out of 10, Ray. All right, Bob, you're an 8 out of 10. Real quick, tell me why you're not a 5. Why did you say 8? What do you see that's valuable? Get them starting to talk up your product a little. Oh, with all that being said, why are we at an 8? What's missing that doesn't have you at a 9 or a 10? Is there anything I didn't cover here today, Bob, that you feel like you need to be successful? Well, Ray, the data and the platform and the results all sound great, but I don't know about the level of support. Oh, did I mention we offer 10 support weekly workshops? We offer a chat feature within the platform to answer most of your questions. We offer a one-on-one in-person support booking link that you can use as often as you need throughout your time in the program. So, Bob, if I was to give you that level of support, in addition to everything we talked about, I'm sorry I didn't fully cover the support. Where do you stand on that scale now of 1 to 10? Oh, with that level of support, I'm probably closer to a 9, maybe even a 10, right? All right, so you're saying you feel like this has everything you need to get those, let's just say the results are lower cost in your ad campaigns, right? Yeah, Ray, I totally feel like this is a fit. Great. That's kind of the whole temp check thing. A few different ways you can go about it. And again, check the verbiage in the script or in the transcript. I have it kind of down and transcripted from calls in there. Right now, I'm obviously doing a little off the top of the top of my head, off the cuff, but you're going to find a lot of the same verbiage and terminology. I know I'm not saying it word for word, but I guarantee if you guys are following along or reading through, what you're reading, especially in the temp check, is kind of what I'm talking about here. So can I please get all the links you shared earlier? Yeah. I will drop those again. Well, let me just do it now just to be safe. Georgetta, you definitely have the one from earlier. That was the main document that I drop every single week. But I don't know why I closed it. My bad. I'll just go copy it. Sorry for the delay here, guys. I'm just going to find that one more time for Georgetta. So the script I'm talking about that I said to follow along, the framework where most of what I'm covering today is going to be this one I just dropped in the chat. And then the thing on my screen, and actually to everybody, I don't think I shared this one. So the thing on my screen that I've covered and I put together for today's lesson, the content of today's lesson is now going to be this one going into the chat. So I don't think I shared this one with anyone yet. So thank you for the reminder, Georgetta. And the one right before this one is the script and the transcript of the framework that I said to refer back to. So those are all the links that we're covering here today. Okay, cool. So now that we've gone into the temp check, as I say one more time, don't go into cost price yet, even once they said they're a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. I like to throw one more disqualifying question, and people might be like, hey, what do you mean by that? Or why would you do that right here? There's a very specific reason, and this is a great example of a good disqualifying question to use right there. And I might even limp this into what I was just saying because I was kind of doing it off the cuff. But okay, Bob, so you're a 9 out of 10. That being said, 9 out of 10 that this will get you the results. Is there any reason, again, that you feel you wouldn't be successful utilizing my platform and my data? Or is there anything provided here that you feel like you wouldn't, or is there anything not provided here that you feel like you would need to be successful? No, Ray, there's no reason I could think of that I wouldn't be successful. Again, one more time, just having them, I'm hopefully you guys can kind of see where I'm going with that. But the last thing out of their mouth before I actually drop price is, no, Ray, there's no reason I can't be successful with your product, your service, your data. And again, you guys can now see the thought process or the logic that leads them here. It all is part of the framework that leads them into this. But again, that's what I call another tie down question. And the best time to use a really good tie down is right before you go into price. You getting the prospect, the other individual to say, yes, I need that. Yes, I can't live without it. Yes, there's no reason I can't be successful. Definitely, right. Great. So now, again, I lay out the cost and I go into next steps here as well. So I don't just say, hey, Bob, the price for my data is, we have a couple different packages and lay out the options here. I don't necessarily just do that right now. What I would say is, all right, so now I'm going to lay out the cost. So, Bob, we have a few different tiers and packages, and really depending on your budget, I know we talked about that a little in the conversation, but we probably want to offer the package that number one is going to get you the results you're looking for, and number two fits within your budget. So based on everything we talked about, it sounds like you probably want our platinum package, where you also want the in-market audiences for your ad campaigns. You also want the identity resolution, because we talked about all the traffic you're getting to your website, and you want us to run some of the reactivation campaigns, because you told me you don't have in-house marketing set up through your automations and through software. So if we handled all that, that would be our premier package. Does that sound like it's what you need, Bob? Yes. So I'm going to tie them down to a particular package first, if I'm offering different tiers or different offers. And again, I like to prescribe that based on the one that is going to fill their needs. Now, if this guy told me I have all my marketing internal channels and I know how to do reactivation, well, then I'm just going to be offering my gold package with the list and the pixel, and I don't have to offer my platinum with the outreach. Or if I just want the audiences, maybe that's my silver package, where you just get one thing, but he doesn't have enough traffic, doesn't need the pixel, and doesn't need the reactivation or the remarketing channels done for him, right? So again, depending on the package, I want to lay out the one that's going to best solve his problem. And then I'm going to say, hey, Bob, so does that sound like what you need? Yeah, right. It sounds like the platinum. Great. So basically, the way that works, and I'll lay out the prices. We have a few different pricing options, but we would collect payment and get you rocking and rolling here today. And then we would start to do our onboarding process, which means I'm going to immediately get you over to my onboarding crew, my support team, which gets you platform access. They walk you through how to build your first audience, how to use the tools. Then they send you to a one-on-one call with one of our co-owners, which is called our fastest path to cash call. And he helps you best figure out how to package up your offer, remarket this, gives you some tips on the niche and the industry and the marketing and the messaging and all the sales resources you need to go, resell this to your audience. So having all those things, does that sound good, Bob? Yes, it does. So that was a bit lengthy, right? I went in more depth. A lot of the stuff I talk about when selling Audience Lab to one of my prospects. And then I get into the assumptive sale. Once they've told me yes or no, Ray, I don't feel like there's any way I can't be successful. Yes, Ray, I'm totally looking forward to that, and having that onboarding and access to the platform and all the sales resources. That's definitely what I need to get rocking and rolling. And then I assume the sale. So it can be something as simple as this. All right, great, Bob. So all that being said, the last part here is just taking care of the payment so we can get into the onboarding. And that's really the best part. We can get you started today for the plan you're looking for at just $2,500 a month. Will that be credit or debit? So again, just to specify, I know some people hopped on late. What the main component of the lesson, and I haven't totally dove into the main component, believe it or not, is diving into prospect finances or financials, literally getting them to be open with and sharing their credit balance, their checking balance, their savings balance, their monthly budget, how many margins they're walking off, all that kind of stuff. But again, this is the prep stuff to get into that. So that's why I stop and I say, number 1 through 5 are the preparation questions leading into digging into finances. So guys, what I mean by that is, if I assume the sale here, and don't think I haven't had this happen, because I have. I actually logged it through a couple hundred calls. It was 14% of people would just pull out their credit card and pay on the assumptive sale, right? Normally, I would at least get a question, sometimes objections, but at minimum, a question there or some type of kickback. But about 14% of the time, when I go through this process the way I just laid it out and do this properly and say, hey, Bob, 2,500, will it be credit or debit? They pull out their credit card and say, hey, Ray, it's a debit, 2543, and they start reading me the numbers, right? You might not believe that, but it happens when you do it right. And I don't know if 14% is a high or low conversion rate when assuming the sale. To me, it sounds kind of high. But either way, some people will do it right then and there. So don't ever hesitate. If they've told you I'm 9 or 10 out of 10, there's no reason I can't be successful. Yes, Ray, that's everything I need. Go in and assume the sale. Feel confident, right? I think a lot of people stumble around there. I'm sorry, somebody, can you guys all mute? Somebody's coming through.
What I was saying is, you're currently selling it, the data, the audience data.
Is this a question? I'm sorry. Jed?
Oh, sorry, I didn't know my mic was on.
Well, that's what I was trying to find out. Great. Let me go back into what I was saying. I didn't want the distraction so everybody could follow along. Perfect.
Sorry.
So yeah, again, assume the sale, and that's why I said at the beginning of the call, every call goes different. So if I assume the sale now and they pull out their debit or credit card, I never have to go into digging into finances, right? Or if I just get a simple objection, which as I told you guys earlier, all covered in the document that I have out here. Let's say we get into mainstream price objections. So as I always tell people, the only objection I ever want to get is price. I want to dive everything down to finances, and then I want to make it make sense for them financially. That's the way to close the deal on every call that should close. Am I saying every call should close? Heck no. If you don't have the right prospect, they don't have the budget, it's not a good fit, they're not your ideal client, there's plenty of reasons to not close a deal. But when you have the right fit, and all I want is the only objection I ever want is finances. And then I want to dive into finances and make it make sense financially. So again, what I'm saying is if at first we're getting a price objection, 2,500 is too much, Ray. I got something invested, or let me take some time to think about it. Whatever it is, go through the transcript of overcoming objections first. And again, I'll try to get back to this if I have time. But what I really wanted to dive into again is the financial breakdown. Now I've shared this document with all you guys in the chat, so you can be following along. If you have opened it and you are doing that, we're down on about page 9 in that sale master doc framework that I dropped the link in the Zoom chat there. But again, so all those reasons I may not have to dive into finances, but if they tell me at this point, and we're to the point where we're about to close, everything totally makes sense. And the only thing is, Ray, 2,500, I just can't, I just don't have it available in my account right now today. I'm not sure I could pull the trigger on that, but if you give me, so if we start to get into that, or, any type of, again, the only objection is finance, and it's really budget. It's not that they don't want to or can't afford to. It's really tough. And again, guys, I never want to do this. I always go over people's budget and what's going to be right for them. I don't want to take somebody's rent payment and have them not get a result with my platform in the first 30 days and say, hey, Ray, now I can't pay my rent. I would never want that on me. So again, doing what's right within the prospect's budget and really ethically. Can I send again? Yes, I can, Rodney. 1 second. Let me just grab that again. So again, I did drop a couple links earlier. One is the one of the document I'm looking at on my screen. The other one, and the one I'm putting in the chat now, Rodney, this is the transcript that I'm telling everybody to follow along. So I just dropped it in there. It's timestamped at 3:28 Eastern in the chat. That is the transcript, this one on my screen right now, with all the overcoming objections, literally the transcripts that are pulled out of every call recording. If you also want the process and the document I am actually covering for the context of today's lesson, let me go redrop that in the chat one more time, because I know, Rodney, it wasn't only you, 2 or 3 people joined since the last time I dropped it. So let me go put that in there for anybody. So now the one time stamped at 3:29 Eastern is the document you see on my screen in today's lesson. The one from 3:28 is the script I'm saying refer back to. Okay, cool. So now, again, steps 1 through 5 that I've covered through most of this call and most of today's lesson are the questions and the framework, the process that really leads into diving to finances, again, where applicable. Now is the most important time of the conversation to remember the framework and script, which is why I tagged it right in this document as well, and that I put together for y'all, right? With the transcript, to everything that I'll be covering for the rest of this call. So again, I'm going to go more off the top of my head and through my framework. I want you guys to be looking at the transcript when you're in the sections and the areas. And right now we're going to be into the digging into finances, and it'll be page 9 going into page 10 on that document I sent you is right around where I'm at. I'm sure you guys will pick it up real quick. So first 5 steps, just to recap. Let's just say for this discussion, we're starting from the point of the call where the cost is getting brought up, whether it's through your natural organic flow of your script or whether the prospect asks and it's the time for you to kind of dive into cost. That's where this discussion came from. Then we don't go into cost pricing yet. We go back into the temp check, which again, anybody hopped in late that wants more stuff on that, this replay will be posted in the school community later today. You can go back and catch the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever. After the temp check, don't go into cost yet. One more final disqualifying question, which is really another tie down, getting them to say, hey, Ray, there's no reason I wouldn't be successful with this data, with this product, with this service, with this offer, right? You name it. Everybody's got a little bit of a different spin. Most of you guys are DaaS reseller agencies, if not all of you. So I'm going to keep it more specific to the data here, right? Then number 4, we finally, after that, one more disqualifying question, when like, no, there's no reason to be successful. We lay out the cost. Then we dive into the assume the sale, collect the investment, set the expectations for onboarding and what's next. And then if we're still not closed, Ray, I don't have the money. Hey, man, I really want to hop in, but I got to build out a budget to do this next month or next year. Great. Let's ask for permission now to dive into finances. So could be something as simple as this. And again, terminology in the script might be a little different. This was off the cuff, but it's going to be right in the same thing. Same wheelhouse, right? Hey, Bob, are you open to having a brief discussion regarding your finances? I mean, that way we can really game plan for you what's best, right? Whether that be today, tomorrow, next week, next month. Let's just build out the game plan so we're on the same page in terms of time frame and what fits your budget. Is that at least fair of me to ask, Bob? Right? And then again, sit back and be quiet. It's very rare when we're doing this in their best interest, which we are. He's told us I'm 9 or 10 out of 10. Hey, Ray, I need this. Hey, this will help me get my goal. Now, by now, and you're going to see me dive into this a little in 7, 8 through, F below, I'm going to recap a little bit. Now, again, if we're at this part of the conversation where we've driven into cost, we've probably already gone over finances a little, right? I know early in my call, sometimes it's even on an application before I even get on a call, I know what they're making and they'd like to be making. If not, I find that out pretty early. So I should already have that information. Just keep that in mind. I mean, that's kind of always in my mind as a given, but I just like to specify because it's not a given to everybody, and I'm aware of that. So again, a lot of times I might recap when I do this. Hey, Bob, just so it's the best fit to help you get from that 10 to 30K months, like you said you were looking for. You told me if you could get those ad costs down and this software would do that, you could start hitting those more profitable months and campaigns. So is it fair if we at least dive into your finances so I can build out a game plan for when we can start to see those returns? Right? Again, however you want to phrase it, I gave you a couple different examples, but it's basically this framework that is highlighted and in quotes on my screen. Now, when you do this, again, in their best interest, everything you've done in this call has been very ethical, and you're only at this point because it's the right prospect. He can get results, and there is some budgetary restraints or constraints, right? So when you ask, is that fair, guys, they're going to say yes 80% of the time, maybe even higher, right? And then is where now I dive into the financials. So I think the transcript is much more relevant. I broke down the transcript into 5 or 6 simple steps, but the actual verbiage in the transcript is a little more relevant than just the, again, overview of the steps that I'm about to cover. But when I went through the transcript and I rewatched the role play of Jesse and I doing this, it came down to these A through F steps every time that I've seen this conversation and every transcript that I've deciphered with people that have followed the framework properly, we'll just say. So again, I start when we go, yeah, Ray, that is fair. I'm open to talking about finances. So you're right. I do need this. And whether it's today or tomorrow, I really need to build a game plan and a goal for myself. Great, Bob. I'm glad you feel that way about that. So based on what we talked about, you're currently at 10K months. You want to be at 30K months. Now, within those 10K months that we were talking, what are operating costs and cost of living? Or was that 10K what you clear after you covering those expenses? Oh, when I meant 10K months, Ray, we are netting 10K after we pay business expenses, payroll, softwares, et cetera. Okay, so 10K profit, but you're not counting living expenses. Is that safe to say, Bob? No, not counting living expenses. So 10K a month there. When it comes down to rent, food, mortgage, and your monthly costs, what's left at the end of the month? My costs are around 6,400, so that leaves me about 3,600 buffer each month. Great. And you mentioned you're in a relationship. Is that a serious relationship? Do you guys live together? Yeah, we do. Does she also contribute? And do you guys have, do you have 2 incomes or is it all you? Oh, no, she has an income. Oh, so there's a larger household income. Okay, great. So out of that 3,600 that you said, what do you actually save or bank out of that a month? Well, Ray, I mean, outside of some business expenses and investments, and because we have 2 incomes, we're actually pretty good at banking quite a lot of it. So that 3,600 is a pretty good nest egg. Now, I will say I dive into that whenever I'm going to make a purchase. I bought a new car about 18 months ago. I had a nice nest egg, and obviously that dove into it. So not to say I'm not good at banking it, but I will use it for a certain, expense here and there. And it's a little tapped in on the low side right now, right? So again, I'm just kind of reiterating what we talked about and diving into more details that he's open to and comfortable with talking about, right? So again, could be current revenue, overhead profits, revenue goals. I always think it's important when we're selling to people, whether business to consumer or business to business, the difference between revenue and profits. So for an employee, if we're just selling direct to consumer, they have money each month and they gross 10K, but you need to know their expenses. That is their overhead as if they were a business, right? They have living expenses. When we talk about business, hey, I make 10K months. You know how many guys I know that do that profit 1K? They have 9K in expenses, overhead, software, employees. Like that's not a 10K a month business. It's kind of a 1K a month business. Yes, it generates 10K, but this guy's got 1K to actually go put into his bank account. Then once we take living expenses, he might be negative each month and living off his girl's salary. We don't know. Each situation could be different. So I don't like to assume. I like to dive into these conversations and get the open, honest truth. And then once we've gone through and verified the revenue goals, where he's at, where he wants to be at, building out this game plan, I kind of start to future pace him more as a consultant, right? So I kind of already just went into this in my last little spiel because it's the next step and I just kind of led into it. But hey, Bob, so based on where you're at currently, profiting 10K months, ideally you'd like to be profiting 30K months. Lowered ad profitability and rising ad costs has been one of the biggest deterrents, you know, but where you're at 10 and where you want to be 30, is it cool if we dive into your finances a little farther so we can help you hit that 30K revenue goal sooner rather than later? And as you talked about, really build out that game plan. Yeah, Ray, let's do it. So then we literally run through the major accounts they have. And I start with, all right, Bob, so what are the accounts that you have? Do you have checking, savings, credit, multiple credit cards? Walk me through your financial options and what you actually have access to. And then we'll see which one you're comfortable diving into. And, I might ask you a couple more questions about where you normally make your business expenses, things like that. Well, Ray, we have a checking, savings, and we currently have 2 credit cards. One we use personal and I don't loop into the business, and one is for more business investments. Okay. Well, let's just leave the personal one out of it. That sounds like something between you and your girl and your relationship, and that's what that money's for. Let's just exclude that. Let's talk about checking, savings, and your business one, and see if we can make something work. Is that fair, Bob? Yeah, Ray, that's totally fair, and I appreciate you saying so because I probably wasn't going to tap into that one. Not worth the fight I'm going to get into. Totally get it, man. I'm married to whatever, right? Break the ice, joke a little with the guy. And then once he tells me, hey, I have these 2 accounts and this one credit account, those are the ones we're going to dive into a little primarily. So ask how they generally make purchases or investments for your business. So, Bob, we're talking about this program and that platinum plan that you were looking at for $2,500 a month. Now, you had told me that savings account builds up and sometimes you use it for, purchases like a new car. Sometimes you use it for investments in the business. So if you're to make a $2,500 investment in the business, where would that payment generally come from, or how would you generally make that purchase? I'd probably either do it through my savings if I felt comfortable. Sometimes, depending on what's available, my business credit, because I get returns and it's a better, better source of tracking all my revenue for my accountant. Okay, great. So maybe some combination, but you're open to either your savings or your business credit. Is that fair to say? Yeah, those are the 2 I would like to use ideally. Great. So now we get into like real details. And again, I highlighted here in bold, check the transcript, very important. I'm not going to dive into the little back and forth of each discussion. And then it says in the transcript, even rinse and repeat for each card. So if they told me they have 3 cards, I'm going to do that same thing all 3 times. But now we know with this guy, we're really focusing on the 2 cards because we've already gotten to that conversation, right? And I'm just saying if we haven't now, or if we haven't already, you would definitely be doing that now. It'd be kind of weird doing now, though, if we didn't already bring it up. It's all part of the framework. But okay, Bob, so between your savings and the business credit card, those are the only 2. Your debit card is attached to your savings. Is that safe to say? Okay, so cool. So debit and your business credit card are the 2 main cards that we're going to be looking at. Tell me, how do we normally manage your accounts and check your statements? Do you do that digitally online? Do you do paper statements? Are you old school? Do you still visit your institution, your bank in person? I talk to people that do it all different ways. How do you do yours? Ray, I check mine digitally. Everything's digital, and I run a digital business. I'm with the times. Oh, great. So you literally have access to check balances and bring up information now. Awesome. Good. We can do this in real time, right? That's a great benefit of that statement. 9 out of 10 people nowadays, especially business owners, are going to say digital. All right. I would venture to guess, and I haven't sold B2C for a little while, I'd venture to guess even 70% of consumers are going to answer digital, if not higher. But I know with business owners, that number's going to be 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, generally speaking, right? So great, digitally. Now, let's start with the debit account, and specifically, let's go into the savings because that's what you said you kind of use for business, and you put money in there for these types of investments and opportunities to grow the business, right, Bob? Yeah, Ray, I did say that. Great. So currently, what do we have for in the savings account? Well, Ray, I currently have 7,400. Okay, you got 7,400 in your savings. Great. And let's talk a little about the business checking. Within there, I'm sorry, the business credit that you had mentioned. You said you get more points, easier to track things. That's what your accountant asks you to tie your business purchases to. Sounds like that's your preferred method. What do you have for a limit, and what's the current balance, and what's the kind of availability? Ray, this business card has a $10,000 limit. I just made some big investments and purchases recently. I'm currently tapped out with an $8,000 balance, so I only have about $8,000 of spendage, about a $2,000 balance left on the account. So I've used up 80% of my balance there. Okay, well, my guess is you don't want to max out the card, but you also likely do want to be utilizing it for the reasons you said. So what if we did this, Bob? Based on everything that we just discussed, when you want to get the results, I know you said you weren't comfortable with 2,500 out of your checking today. And I get it. It's about 1/3 of what's in there. Now, first off, why are you hesitant to invest 1/3 if you told me you were 9 out of 10 in this being the solution, and you were kind of certain that this would get you the results? Well, Ray, it's just that savings is kind of my nest egg, and I never like to have it dip below 5K. It's just kind of a personal thing. And I'm just not comfortable with it. I'm not saying I'm totally against it, and you're honestly talking me more into it here, but it's not ideal. All right, so what if we did this, Bob? What if we split up that 2,500 into a split pay? We put 1,000 on your business card. That way, it doesn't max it out. You get some points, and your accountant can track and put a note in there that you put the other 1,500 of this purchase through your debit card into your savings account. That covers your 2,500, gets you the points on your card, keeps you above 5K in your nest egg of savings. Is that a fair option to get you rocking and rolling? Boom. So again, I kind of again, I freelanced it through that transcript, but I just went through everything you saw in there, and anybody following along probably saw it worded a little more professionally, for lack of a better phrase, because it was literally pulled out of a call transcript rather than me kind of going off the cuff. But you're going to see it very, very similar. Again, I'm sure some things I just said verbatim, word for word. But the last step that I did there, after asking him how he checks his accounts and having him talk to me a little about that, is recap everything I just discussed and then prescribe the best option moving forward. So again, I wouldn't know to prescribe that 1,500 from savings and 1,000 from business credit, and why those things were important to him and why he's more happy to do that payment than just pull out of savings, or then to overdraw his business credit. That's what it would do to do a $2,500 purchase on a $2,000 balance. Would not be smart, right? But if I didn't go through all this, I don't know all those little things. So that way, at the end, I can go back and prescribe what is the best option based on their things and just get them to agree with me or not. In this case, when I finally broke down that answer, my role play partner, myself, alternate Ray Bob, was like, sure, Ray, that does make sense. Yeah, I think we can move forward with that today, right? That would have been the kind of end result. And then, as I mentioned, guys, at the top, I know some of you guys have joined, a little after I started, but one of the things that kind of inspired this, outside of doing some call audits and not hearing people do this when they have the chance to do it, and I get it, it's not a novice level sales move, and it's something a lot of people are uncomfortable with. I totally get that aspect, but if you go back through, and especially whether you go back through this call or you watch that 13-minute bonus, 13-minute bonus is a recording of Jesse and I about 5 years ago. So again, through the archives, doing this exact role play. Jesse's playing the sales rep. I'm playing the prospect. I'm giving him objections. I'm telling him why I can't spend money. I'm using my wife as a crutch. He still ended up closing me in the end because he dove into this and did it non-invasive, right? So it was a really good little role play he and I did going through this transcript before we ever had it put in a transcript. We used to just do it off the top of our heads. It was kind of second nature to us because that's all we really did was sales. I think it was before we ever, put it in a transcript. Jesse, even 5 years ago, probably did it close to word to the transcript you're looking at that was definitely written after that conversation. But just a great little example of going into that. But again, what I was kind of going with that is whether you ask yourself this question based on the example and the little role play I did back and forth with myself, or watching that video, really ask yourself, was this invasive? Was this sketchy? Was this yucky? Was this grimy? Right? Those are all the reasons people tell me they don't dive into finances. I feel like can't do it ethical. It's a little grimy. I feel sleazy. I feel this. It's like money is just an aspect of business, right? We're all in business. We all transact money daily. We pay some, we collect some, whatever. It's just reciprocal in turn of value and goods and services. Now, if you aren't providing any value, goods, or services, recheck what you're doing. Otherwise, don't really be hesitant to go into finances, guys. It's always what's in their best interest. Again, we have even gave them the out before I ever got into cost. No matter how far we go into this, even when they gave me the green light up here to give me, I'm a 9 or a 10 out of 10, Ray, I'm ready to move forward. That's the green light to go into price. I still give them another out and ask a disqualifier and ask them to tell me why they couldn't be successful, or if there was anything else that they think they need provided that they don't think we offer or provide to them, right? So there's so many times, if I am this far in the conversation and going into this, there's a reason. And this guy, I got to tell you, every time I've done this, it's been, can't say every time because there's always going to be outliers, but it's been people that come in and get results with the product, right? I don't do this for people that are not ideal clients, for people I'm just trying to close to get a deal in to pay my employees or whatever. Like, yeah, we all have to do what's right by our people and make money, but we have to do that what's right by our consumers and ethical in the marketplace. Don't ever just close a deal to close a deal. Close a deal because you truly feel like you were the best person to help that person get results. And with the product you guys have, the script, the framework, the lesson I went over today, I mean, again, a little bit of an advanced sales tactic or tool, but having this in your bag of tricks, for lack of a better phrase, to pull out when you get that prospect gives you ammunition that 90% of people aren't doing and aren't utilizing, and helps you just move up to the next tier of level of people who can close deals with prospects that they should, right? Again, I'm not talking about strong arming and enrolling the wrong people. I shouldn't have to keep saying that. I just feel like I see it so often in this industry. And we've all either been a part of, whether it happened to us, friends, or just went through sleazy, grimy sales processes where people just wanted my money and didn't give a two rats, you know what, couldn't give a you know what if I got results or not, right? That shouldn't be how we sell. It's not how I sell. It's nowhere in my framework, my script, my core values, any of my lessons. So again, but this should be everything you guys need to really dive into that, between going through the transcript in there, checking out the 13-minute call recording of Jesse and I going through this in a role play, breaking down some of what I covered here on today's lesson. And hopefully you guys found that helpful. Now, let me go back and just check the chat real quick. I've been on a rant for a little bit. Okay, cool. So lastly, before we wrap up today, let me ask, does anybody have any either questions about today's lesson and what I went through diving into finances, whether that be about the specifics and what we're asking or when it's applicable? Any questions on that, or at minimum, any thoughts on today's lesson and whether it was valuable and whether these are things you're doing or can utilize? You can either type a 1 if you want me to call on you and you want me to either ask a question out loud or give me some feedback, or feel free to type it in the chat if you have any questions or feedback. I'm always very honest with you guys. I'm always looking to get better at what I do. So I always want to know, are these lessons bringing value? Did I learn something new? Is there something today I can go implement that I'm not doing that might, bring me up a peg? Even if it helps me close 1 more out of 10 deals, an extra 10% throughout the year leads to a boatload of new clients and probably a boatload of new revenue, depending on how often you're enrolling clients, right? If you're only enrolling 1 a year, then that might be a little different, but I'm hoping that's not anybody's situation. Rodney, very helpful. Good. Perfect. That's what I like to hear. There's no reason I don't think this wouldn't be valuable, but again, I can't answer what other people think or get their perspective. So I always like to get people's feedback, understand what I can bring you guys to drive more value or give more clarity, really. Sales is a lot about clarity too. I hope you noticed, and that's maybe the outlier takeaway that I didn't highlight today. Everything I did in every sentence in there, again, script might be a little more rigid, but within my framework in the document I shared today, everything was, you know, pretty non-invasive, pretty likable, right? It wasn't a sleazy conversation. And that's what happens when you have an organic process. You have a framework and not a script. I always say a framework is a structure that I like to follow and stay within for a reason. A script, I could teach a smart enough monkey to read a script, right? You really could. That's not what I want. I don't want script writers or readers as sales reps. They become robotic. They become programmed. If anything deviates from the script, they don't know how to use skill and, personality to reel in a back in a person. So I think it shouldn't go overstated that one thing I try to do in my verbiage and the way I explain this to people, everything's very clear. None of that was complex where people shouldn't be able to understand it. Sometimes our product and our offer, and I know for me included, Audience Lab in the back end of what goes on is very complex. Do I need to explain that, or do I want to explain that? Heck no. I don't even know if I can explain every intricacy and complexity of what goes into our platform being the finished product you guys see. I understand the gist of it, but it's not something I would get into on a sales call. There's no reason. I'm going to create confusion, and confusion creates sales friction or resistance, whereas clarity creates more unity and gets people into what I've always referred to as the buying pocket, right? So the more we can be clear, and I love this lesson. I learned this from people that have been in the game a little longer than me, some people that I've followed or may have bought courses, some not. I don't even guys like Billy Jean, Dan Henry. I mean, a lot of people would say when it comes to sales, you know the thing they like to say kind of is the proof is in the pudding. The process works if you use it and if you just follow the framework. But all those guys too, and I've actually been on sales calls in some of their program, those guys, they have frameworks. They're not scripted. They're not rigid. You can even see in a lot of marketers, their ad copy, you can see, not to say there's not copywriting behind it and some production value to some of these higher, but it is still organic, authentic, and it fits within people's personalities. So that's also another thing I invite everybody to try to merge into your process or your sales call. Be yourself a little. I think a lot of people try to separate professional Ray from personal Ray. Well, actually, when you get a healthy blend of that into your sales rep Ray, for lack of a better phrase, that's where you get the best results. That's where people really feel like, oh, this guy's a person. I'll talk about kids. I'll talk about family. I'll talk about travel, sports, whatever is going to relate to people. Because there's definitely truth to the whole KLT, right? Know, like, trust. And I've always found if you can't generate at least two of those three factors, all three are ideal. But if they don't know or trust you, like or trust you, or trust or like you, if there's not at least two of those three, very hard to get a buyer. And of course, three are ideal. I bet you almost everybody, if you go back and look through people you bought from, and you might feel different now, right? I think we've all been in that. Oh, I felt one way, but most of the people we buy from, and especially the people we're repeat customers, we give positive reviews, we give referrals to. Those are people that we go back to time and time again as repeat customers, and we're probably very, very loyal to those people. And I doubt there's any of those that you don't know, like, and trust those brands, those people, those individuals that you're repeat buyers, repeat customers. So again, I think you can get away with 2 out of 3 to close somebody, but 3 out of 3 is where you get a loyal repeat customer, 9 times out of 10. And that goes into part of what we talked about is being authentic and being yourself. And again, people from a script, they start to get robotic, they start to get redundant, and the prospect can feel it, right? I think you can feel, even though some of this I typed onto a document, earlier today or yesterday when I wrote this lesson, it was all pretty organic. It wasn't scripted, and it's my normal terminology and verbiage. I don't just say words because the script says to say it. And if the script says something or a framework that isn't the same way I say it, I just take that and reprogram it and put it into my phrasing, right? So I advise everybody do the same. Make your own adjustments to the script, to the framework, to suit your personality. And when you can find that healthy blend, I think you feel a lot more comfortable on your sales calls. You really hit your stride. And I think that level of confidence even comes up. Jed, thank you for the comment in there too. Sorry, I was blabbing and didn't read it. This is very great for small business. I'm also wondering more about established B2B businesses. Yeah, so established B2B businesses, I wouldn't say much changes. Now, established B2B businesses, this lesson wouldn't be super applicable in what I mainly covered here today, Jed. Again, that's more for people with financial constraints. I like to call your solopreneur, your entry level person, your startup. Nobody in established businesses falls into those categories. So I don't think a lot of today's lesson applies. I think what applies more to established business owners is really dialing in the value and customizing the pitch. I believe that's the most important component of a sales call and structure to a more established business. And what I mean by that, Jed, is when I pitch this, and again, I always talk about, and you might be relatively new to my calls for these workshops, I always talk about customizing the pitch. And what I mean by that is selling the same product. I might have 8 sales calls booked for the day. I probably pitch it and word it 8 different ways. And what I mean by that is, depending on what I'm selling, and here, let's just say audience lab and data, and let's say the main things are the super pixel and the in-market audiences and the ad technology that we offer people, right? When I'm diving into a more established business, I'm really identifying what's the gap, what's the hurdle number one, what's the biggest concern and challenge in their business. Then I'm making sure when I pitch, I'm really highlighting the aspect of my program that really solves problem number 1 and 2 for that business owner. If we can solve problem 3, 4, and 5 on their list, they're not going to be super inclined to jump forward and take action or make a purchase today. But if I'm very clear that I can solve problem number 1, and let's say, Jed, for this conversation, one of the mainstream ones I see is rising ad cost, lower profitability, and tougher to really target my ideal audience. So if that's the main problem, my whole pitch is how in-market audiences plugged into their campaigns are going to drive them 25 to 40% lower cost per lead and acquisition, which as a byproduct, Jed, is going to increase your ad profitability. Would you agree? Yes, Ray, I would. If you had your business in your business today and those lowered costs, do you think you could get back on track to hitting the profitability you want to see in your campaigns? Yeah, totally, Ray. If we could drop our cost per lead and acquisition by, let's say 30%, let's even go, you said somewhere between 25 and 40, that would certainly put our profitability back on track. Great. So boom. So again, I'm very, very clear about how I customize that. Now, if the guy had been on the call and told me, Ray, we do a majority of our business as an e-commerce physical product, and we drive about 50,000 people to our website. Now I'm going to be leading with the super pixel and how resolving the identity of his bounce visitors and retargeting them in very direct ad and email campaigns is going to drive back in revenue and repeat buyers from people that already know Aaron and aware of his brand, as opposed to more cold traffic, right? So again, the B2B, and I still say for every call, this one I made certain certain prefaces or statements around when this is applicable. But I think within almost every sales call, and really every, I'm not even going to exclude any, the most important aspect is the discovery phase. Did I ask the right questions to really assess how I can offer the best solution and really solve problem number one and or two potentially for this business owner? That's my only objective, and it's really my prime objective with more established business owners, Jed. So maybe not your question. I know I kind of went a little bit on a tangent, but hopefully that helps. And that's my main focus with more established businesses, identifying that number one gap, that number one challenge, and very clearly showing them how I can solve that and the results and outcomes on the other side, and just tie them down to, hey, if you had those results or outcomes, could you get X result? Yes, Ray, I could. Great, Jed. So what's stopping us from moving forward? Now that he's just answered me that question, isn't it very hard to say, well, Ray, I don't want to move forward? Wait, you just told me, Jed, if you had this, you could hit that result. You told me you were on this call because you're trying to hit that result. So why shouldn't you move forward? And sit back and shut up. He's now got to make an excuse to himself, or just bite the bullet and say, yeah, you're right, Ray. I did say that. I was being a little stubborn because I didn't want to be sold right away, but your product's great. Let's do it, right? He's going to do one of those two things. So again, that all kind of goes into the process, but that's why that's my number one objective with that more established business owner specifically.
This is going to be helpful. I want you to get results.
Alrighty, guys. Well, that will wrap it up for today. Less than 2 minutes left of my session. Again, my workshops are now every other week, Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll have a great lesson for the next one. And you can find, and just so everybody's aware, really, really quick, last thing before I dive off, I normally show this, but I know a lot of people have trouble finding our workshops. And we are getting one central hub put together where they all are. Right now, that's still not done. I don't know why it's taking as long as it has. But my workshop replays, just so you guys know, each week, when you go in our school community, and you go to the main channels here, click on sales, and just scroll back. I mean, now it's going to be 2 weeks, but once you click on sales, oops, I clicked on it. I double clicked. Where was I? Sorry. More. Sales. Very simple. Look in this channel. All my workshop recordings are in there. So 14 days ago, Dash Sales Workshop recording. 7 days before, today's Dash Sales Workshop recording. 7 days before. Today's will also be uploaded in this channel by the end of the day if everybody wants to rewatch it or hopped in late or wants to share it with anybody. All right, great, guys. I appreciate everybody's time, participation. Thank you for some of the good feedback, comments, and questions, guys. And we'll see you here in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.